Hi everybody, welcome to Quillpen's Quips, Knitting, and More podcast. This is episode number 3. I am Betsy, and if you are a returning viewer, thanks for coming back and watching me again. If you are a brand new viewer, thanks for giving me a try. We have a couple of new shout outs to do today. There was more people that joined my Ravelry group, the Quillpen's Quips, Knitting and More podcast group on Ravelry, and they introduced themselves in the Introduce Yourself thread, and so they get a shout out on today's podcast. We have Lady Loki 291, who is Vanessa. We have Jay-Z, who is Julia. We have T-Rex Knitter, who is Kristen, and we have DKF Mom, who is Donna. And what's really cool is that I know all of these people. They are all part of my knitting group. DKF Mom is my mom. And the other 3 are good friends from our local yarn shop's knitting environment and knitting group. And so that's just really special when my friends kind of come alongside a new project and a new endeavor like this podcast and support me in that way. So thanks guys for tuning into the podcast and also for joining the group and introducing yourself. I do only give a shout out to people that do introduce themselves on the Introduce Yourself thread. That's not trying to force you to do something you don't want to do. I know that there are people that are very careful about their identity on the internet, and so if you're not comfortable introducing yourself, that's totally fine. Still join the group, still participate in the chatter, or hopefully we'll be doing some cows or giveaways soon, and I'm hoping to do a giveaway for having 100 members in the Ravelry group. So tell your friends, join the group, and once we get 100 members in there, I will do a giveaway. So that's it for the shout outs. I will say that I have my kids are here. They're downstairs with my husband, and the dog is going up and down and back and forth between all of us, and so there might be some ambient noise that I don't usually have because I normally record during nap time, but we got some stuff going on today, so I'm doing it a little earlier. So if you hear any of that ambient noise, that's just part of my house and my life. So welcome to that part of it. But let's get started. Okay, so last time, the last podcast, I had on my needles the Gilmore Girls socks, the Where You Lead I Will Follow socks from Java Pearl Designs. And I was casting on because it was the first day of the Gilmore Girl knit along. So for one of my finished objects, I have those socks. And here they are. I don't know if I can open this up a little better and show you the front design. CC Design is really pretty meandering lace pattern where the 2 lines sort of go apart and then come back together to symbolize Rory and Lorelai and how they go apart and come back together, but they're still always that family tie. So those are the first socks I finished. These were in the Into the World hand-painted Bukavu sock in the Pamukkale colorway. All that information will be in the show notes. It's also on my project page for these on Ravelry. So these are finished, all set to be submitted into the Gilmore Girl Cal, which I have not yet done. The finished objects thread is on the Geeky Girls Knits podcast Ravelry group, and the chatter is on the Knitting Broomstick podcast Ravelry group, because they're both joining together to do this knit along. So I finished those and I was really happy with those. I love those. Also, just to note, I always do shorty socks. They're the only socks I like to wear. I don't like socks that come up on my calf at all. They're not comfortable and they bother me, and I end up scrunching them down anyway. So my friends, who will not be named but have already been named on this podcast, if you know what I mean, laugh at me and say that I do cheater length socks, which is why I get socks done so quickly. And I maintain that I do not cheat because the patterns almost always say knit until 1 inch below desired length for cuff or whatever. And so, you know, I knit to my desired length and then I start the cuff. But these are my 2 length socks. All of my socks will be this length. Okay, so that was my first finished object. My second finished object is my Sherlock socks for the Sherlock knit along. These are just plain socks. These are actually Java Pearl Design CC Almonds Vanilla Cappuccino socks. I have learned that as a monogamous knitter, there is no place for vanilla socks in my life. To knit and knit and knit and knit and knit was a little boring. They were very easy and they were fairly quick, except for the fact that there were times when I was like, oh, I don't want to pick that up because I'm just going to be knitting. And so I kind of had to slog my way through them. And I get why knitters that have a lot of whips love having a vanilla sock project that they can just pick up wherever they are and not have to think too much about. I get why they love always having a vanilla sock project going. I don't think I will ever make vanilla socks again. Fortunately, in this case, the yarn was super fun and I kind of loved seeing how it was knitting up. And so that kept it a little entertaining. But, so it'd have to be the right kind of yarn and the right kind of gift person for more vanilla socks. But I'm happy with these socks, but I'm also happy that they're done. However, these get me into the Sherlock along. I think I might also submit these into the Gilmore Girl knit along as a second submission because I think these are something that Ling would wear as, you know, sort of on the front when her mom sees them. They're just normal black and white socks. But then, you know, maybe she goes to a Happy Alien concert or goes out at night and she changes into her band outfits and, you know, these glow under black light. So I could kind of see her really getting into these. So I think these could also fit for the Gilmore Girls knit along. I will say I did use the 9-inch circulars on these. Once I got past the toe, I decided to switch to the 9-inch circulars. And they weren't horrible. They were a learning curve. It took a long time for me to learn how to hold them comfortably, to find a way to hold them comfortably. Once I got that, it was much easier, and it did go very, very fast. And it does eliminate the ladders that you get from doing double points or even magic loop. The heel, this is just a variation on a short row heel. Which I had never done before, so that was super fun. So the heel was very easy on the 9-inch circulars, but if you don't use 9-inch circulars for a while for a lot of projects and you come back to them, I could see you having to or at least myself, having to figure out how to hold them comfortably, which kind of detracts from then the speed that you do get later. So for now, the socks that I have going right now, which I'll show you, I'm using DPNs again, but I do think 9-inch circulars have their place, and I think maybe as I spend more time with them and could be able to pick them up right away and hold them comfortably, they would have more of a place in my projects. But they were not a total loss. They definitely did go faster than either DPNs, and that was even on these doing the lace stitch. These took me a shorter amount of time than normal. So if you're interested in the 9-inch circulars, totally give them a try. They might work out for you. I don't know. I'm holding off final judgment until I spend a little more time with them. So those are my 2 finished objects, the 2 pairs of socks. But I also this week finished 2 designs. I finished a shawl and a cowl, and they're matching. They're sort of a matching set. And I'm really excited about it. The design is one that I've been working on for probably a month in terms of the shawl. I had the shawl idea come up and then the specific design element that I've been working on and trying to figure out and make the right size and everything. And so to see it finally come together in an actual shawl was really cool. And then I was like, I should make a matching cowl just because. So I did. So both of the patterns are finished. The shawl pattern is with the tech editor right now. And then once I get it back from the tech editor, I'll start the test knitting process, looking for test knitters. And then by the end of September, I will release them. I have a release date set, and so hopefully I will be able to stick to that. So stay tuned in some future podcasts. I wish I could show them to you. And yesterday, no, 2 days over the weekend, 2 days ago, on Saturday, my husband and I went up to Smith Mountain Lake and took some gorgeous pictures for the patterns that I'm really excited about. And I wanted to come home and post them all over social media right away, but I am refraining until the patterns come out. But I hope that you all will like them as much as I do when the time comes. So stay tuned, and I'll be telling a little bit more about that when the time comes. So that was also, I finished the 2 socks and then the 2 design projects this week, which was fun. So then what is on my needles right now is this came while I was gone. I came home to this package and I was very excited. This is the Coffee with Cece book by Cece Allman, who is Geeky Girls Knits podcast and Java Pearl Designs. She published this whole book of coffee-inspired patterns. There are 6 sock patterns, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sock patterns and 1 shawl pattern, all inspired by coffee. And I'm very excited. And when you order, you can either order the hard copy like this, or you can just get the ebook version off of Ravelry. But if you get the hard copy, she signs it, which is cool. So I realized that the vanilla cappuccino socks that I did for this is a pattern you can get for free if you sign up for her newsletter. So I got this for free, and I didn't realize it was part of this book, but it is part of this book. And Jilly of the Knitting Broomstick podcast is hosting a Coffee with Cece Cal that's been all year long. It started in January and it's going through December. I only found her podcast last month, so I'm just kind of new into the swing of things. But if the goal is to finish all the patterns in this book, and so as you finish them, you edit your entry on the thread to show all of your finished objects, and then at the end of the year, she draws prizes. And so I'm like, well, I've already done 1, so maybe I should try to do them all before the end of the year, because it's only August. It's the middle of August. It's only 6 more patterns, although the shawl is big. The shawl is big, but remember, I do cheater length socks. So cheater length socks in all these patterns are not going to take me too long. So new goal, new filler projects are these. And I needed a filler project because my next thing for our unfinished object challenge doesn't start until the last Saturday of August. I can't cast on until that day. And so probably even that night when technically the number is drawn. So it's still like 2 weeks away. So I needed a filler project. So I'm doing some socks. So I'm doing the espresso macchiato socks. Let me show you what hers look like, because they definitely say espresso macchiato because of the colorway a little bit more than mine do. But these are designed for self-striping yarn. It's supposed to be self-striping, and then you pick where in the stripe you want to do the pattern. You have to have a 3-row length of a color to be able to do the pattern in. So this is really the only striping yarn I had, and technically this is even on my needles because I finished it last night during the Olympics, but this is my espresso macchiato sock, and so I'm doing it on the whites because the black and the yellow are just too short. They're like 3 in some spots, but mostly just 2, and then the teal is really long, and I feel like that kind of would have looked funny just in the middle of that. But the white for me is 5 rows. So I do 1 row of just the knit, and then the 3 rows of the pattern, and then another row of knit on the top. And I think it's turning out really well. I'm happy with it. So this is the first sock. And I didn't expect to finish it. I actually expected to still have it on the needles, but then we were watching the Olympics last night and I just kept going. So I finished this. This is in the turtle pearl striped turtle toes self-striping yarn. It comes in two separate hanks so that it will be exactly matching. So I'll start the second sock on this one and it'll start in the same exact spot. So they should be exactly matching. So that is my current on the needles, and I'm hoping then to submit both the vanilla cappuccino and then the espresso macchiato, and then we'll move on from there. And it was funny last night because my husband has decided that he really wants me to knit him socks, but he can't decide on the pattern. He has a hard time kind of telling what the pattern actually looks like just from a picture. So he's like, well, just knit them all up and then I'll pick once I see what yours looks like. So I'll be knitting all of these anyway. So hopefully I'll finish by the end of the year so I can be entered in the giveaways on the knitting broomstick. And this is all housed in a very special project bag that was gifted to me. And this is actually the Kelborn Woolens knitting bag. It's a knitting project bag from Kelborn Woolens. And it says use your hands, and then these are the American Sign Language finger spelling letters for the word knit, which it says right there. And then on this side it says make something. So technically it's supposed to probably be say make something, crochet, and then use your hands, knit. And I love this project bag, and what is especially great about this project bag is the size, because right now I have the two skeins of yarn and the sock that I finished. I have the book. The book fits inside it. I have my notions bag. I have my knitting journal, my project journal. And what I even love about this is that my current journal, which is gigantic and has been drawn on by my highly creative 2-year-old, also fits inside there, and it still zips, and I can take it everywhere. My keys fit in there. It's awesome. So that's what is housing this current project, and I love it. So that should be done pretty soon, actually. Those should be done, and then I'm hoping maybe I can sneak in one more pair of socks before the UFO gets started, which the UFO for me is going to be the Elfie sweater. If you don't know what that is, there's the pattern picture of it. It's just a stripe that goes all the way down. A lot of people, when I first moved back to this area and first went to the knit shop, this was a cow that was going on, and a lot of people were making them, but I didn't knit at the time, and so I just kind of like, oh. But then when I did start knitting, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make an Elfie like everybody else. So I had all the yarn and stuff for it. It's just always gotten pushed back. But this is what I'm gonna make it out of. Actually, I feel like it's important to kind of do opposite of what she did, and I think it looks better, at least on my body type, to do the heavier color at the bottom. And so I'm starting with a white. This is Cascade fingering. All this will be on my show notes and project page at the top where her reddish is. And then I'm gonna do this, which is Malabrigo sock yarn in the Carabino colorway. It's sort of a blue, green, teal, variegated. And that's going to be as it comes down. You'll see that one towards the bottom. So I'm really excited about that. So that'll start in just a couple weeks, but I think I can maybe get one more sock. The other funny thing about the fact that I'm doing socks is not only did I say that I would never ever knit, and then I started knitting, I also said I would never ever knit socks. And then I knit a sock for some reason. I think there was a cow going on, and it was a special, I don't know, it just all worked out in the right moment. I had this special new sock yarn, and then there was this cow going on that I wanted to join in, and this pattern for shorty socks that I liked anyway, and I decided to make some socks, and now I make a lot of socks. So never say never. You never know what'll happen. So that is what is off my needles, on my needles, and going to be on my needles. And then, so the last podcast, I had a lot of new stash enhancement acquisitions. And I said how I don't normally buy that much new yarn. Yeah, that lasted about a week and a half. And then I got my Knit Picks catalog. And normally Knit Picks, I'm not normally tempted too much by their yarn. Sometimes I'm tempted by like their other stuff, their bags or their coffee mugs or their notions or whatever. Normally not so much their yarn. But in this case, I fell in love with a pattern. And then because I fell in love with the pattern as it is, I went ahead and got the yarn for it from Knit Picks, from the yarn that they recommend. So this is the sweater. It's called the Happily sweater. It's so pretty. I love it. I love, love, love it. And the color's not really transparent. I don't know whether it's just because it got printed on, printed out on paper, whether it's the computer, but it's kind of this maroon up here and then the white. And then it fades down. Now on hers, it fades to a pink. I am not very much a pink person. So I have it fade to an orange. So it's kind of, mine goes from this deep mulberry kind of color into kind of a reddish to an orangish red to an orange. So I went ahead and got the yarn for that. And I don't think I'm going to be able to wait until post baby to make it. So I think I might just take use my pre-pregnancy measurements. I do a fairly good job of losing the baby weight fairly quickly. So I think I can go with my measurements from before I got pregnant to make it and be okay at the end. Unless I find enough projects in the middle to keep my time. All those coffee with CC's might take me all the way through December, and then the baby comes in January, and I'm probably not going to want to knit for a little while, and we'll see. But the Happily sweater, I'm very excited about it. So that was my newest purchase this week. But I had to, because if I bought this pattern and loved the pattern and only got the pattern, then when I want to make it, I wouldn't be able to find the right color scheme in yarn, and it wouldn't be available there. That's just how the universe works for me. So I went ahead and bought it. But that concludes my fibery section. So let's move on. Okay, so we're moving on to what I am watching and reading right now. Reading and watching, whichever order I originally said. But it kind of blew my mind. Not long after I filmed the last podcast, and then I came home and we started watching Person of Interest together again in the same room. My two worlds collided because an actor from Hamilton is on Person of Interest. Because this guy started coming on Person of Interest. They added a new bad guy. He's the bad guy. Bad guy on Person of Interest. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I think that guy looks like one of the actors from Hamilton. Now, granted, the only exposure I have to the actors on Hamilton is the show book that I have, and then like the pamphlet from the soundtrack. So just pictures, and I'm like, that guy looks so much like him. So we start looking it up. My husband started looking it up while we're watching the show, and sure enough, the guy who plays Aaron Burr in Hamilton is on Person of Interest. So my two little worlds collided there for a little while, and that was very exciting. I also started watching Rosemary and Thyme because Cece from Geeky Girls Knits recommended it. I love mysteries. I've always loved mysteries, I think. My I can even remember the first little story that I wrote was this story about a missing necklace, and they had to go solve the mystery of the missing necklace. And I mean, I grew up on Nancy Drew and Encyclopedia Brown and Cam Jansen and Hardy Boys and all those. And then the Cat Who novels, and I love the Death on Demand series by Carolyn Hart, and I love all cozies, pretty much. If it's a cozy mystery, I'm probably going to like it. Cozy is a genre. It is its own genre. It's a legitimate genre of mystery. It's meant to be one of those that you can curl up on your couch with like a cup of tea or a mug of coffee and just read the book. It's one of those where like the worst thing that happens is the murder and nothing else bad happens. There's not really anything graphic or raunchy or too scandalous, at least not in terms of described in the storyline. And so it's just a little cozy mystery. Curl up and be cozy with it. So I love all cozies. And in terms of my TV, I love mysteries. I love especially the old school ones like Remington Steele and Columbo, and I can't even tell you all the, like, I have lots of old mysteries. And the I almost said the Percy Jackson series. Perry Mason, all of those. And I got into the Murdoch mysteries, which is a Canadian mystery, but it's really good. And Midsummer Murders, which is British. And then, so then that opened the whole British mystery, not even counting Agatha Christie and Miss Marple and Hercule Poirot and all of those, but the Bletchley Circle and Doc Martin and Death in Paradise. I loved, even though that was set in the Caribbean. It's a British chief inspector who goes to one of these Caribbean islands to be theirs and their detective, and it's just a really cute show. But these shows that I find on Netflix that I then end up falling in love with are short. Like, they don't, like, either their season is shorter, like Sherlock itself is 3 episodes a season, but then there's just not as many seasons. They might have only lasted 2 or 3 seasons. Like Rosemary and Thyme, I picked up because Cece and Tammy talk a lot about the stuff that they're reading and watching, and Cece watches a lot of mysteries like I do, and a lot of the same mysteries that I do. And so she was talking about Rosemary and Thyme and how she liked it and it was cute, and how it really reminds her of Murder, She Wrote, which I watched all of the Murder, She Wrotes. And because it's these 2 little old ladies who are gardeners. They're not even that old. They're just ladies, and they're gardeners. And so then as they're working on people's gardens, people end up dead, and they help solve the mysteries. And I loved it. I loved it. But now it's over. I watched all 3 seasons, and now I don't have anything else to watch. So Netflix was like, you might like Inspector Morse. So I tried Inspector Morse. I'm still in the first episode. It's very 80s, and I'm just not sure how I'm going to like it. So if any of you know of any good Netflix kind of fun mysteries that I could watch, like the Franny Fisher, Miss Fisher mysteries, that's Australian. She's Australian. Those were great. So I need a new round of kind of feel-good mysteries that I can watch, especially like during the day, during nap time when I'm knitting. So I'm a little in need of a new show that I can watch by myself that my husband won't mind if I'm not watching with him. Then, for reading, we had our new book club announcement of what we're reading for book club. And this month for August was The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. And I was actually really excited about it. I didn't know much about it. And, I know of H.G. Wells and the War of the Worlds and that kind of thing. And I was very intrigued by the description of The Time Machine. I was looking forward to reading it. And here it is. The Time Machine. It's only 90 some pages. 96. And I'm still not done. This book is not catching my fancy. I don't know why. I'm still kind of intrigued by the idea, sort of build a time machine and go into the future and see what happens. I don't know whether it's his style of writing. It's all narrative. There's no dialogue, mostly because the people in the future don't really talk, or they don't have a language that he can describe, and so it's just him telling his narrative story, and I guess I just don't really like that type of storyline. I need dialogue to sort of progress the story in my mind. And I was really intrigued in the beginning because the characters are all by they don't have names. They're just the medical man, or the psychologist, or the very young man. I kind of liked that it was sort of a group of people. It could represent a whole group of people instead of just a person's name. But then they're out because he's telling the whole story of him going to the future, and there's a lot of run-on sentences and a lot of long sentences. There's not a whole lot of variation in sentence structure, and it's just hard to read for me. It's not captivating my interest. I can't read it for a long time in one sitting. So I am very close. I think I have a chapter left in the epilogue, but it's slow going. So the Time Machine is not top of my list. Not my absolute favorite, but if you like a narrative-driven story, this might be right up your alley. So think about it. I also just started reading Better Than Before by Gretchen Rubin. My mom actually got into this and wanted me to read it, and another friend of ours was asking. It's about habits and kind of learning how you respond to habits and making new habits work for you, because just following how someone else does something might not work for you depending on your tendencies. And she described people in 4 different types of tendencies based on how you react to outward commitments or expectations, like those that you make to someone else. If you tell someone else, I'll do this, are you more or less likely to keep that commitment than one that you tell just yourself that you're going to do? And so people kind of fall into four different categories. And so one of our friends was asking us to take her little quiz and find that out, and I was very interested by my result. So I'm going to read the book and see sort of what it means about habits for myself, and how I can make and maintain good habits, even though I react to commitments differently than the people around me do. So that's sort of what I'm reading and watching right now. So let's move on to sign language. So for sign language section today, the signs of the day, my 2-year-old recently in the last week or two has learned 2 new signs, and they are the signs for patient and wait, because these are 2 new skills that we are working on with him. He is go, go, go all the time, and sometimes he has to wait, and sometimes he has to be patient. And so we've been working on the signs, and he can now sign them himself, and he can also understand them when someone signs them to him. And it's been very, very helpful to be able to say, be patient or wait. And it kind of calms him down and helps him refocus, because it's something that he understands. So I'm going to teach those to you today so that you know them as well. So the first sign is patient. Patient. This is an A hand. This is the letter A. So your fingers are like a fist, but your thumb is off to the side. It's not in front. It's to the side of your index finger. And then you run your thumb down your mouth. So patient. Patient. And then the sign for wait is your palms are in, facing you. Your hands are your fingertips are facing up, and you wiggle your fingers. Wait. Wait. And patient. And then just for fun, since it's the Olympics, I thought you could learn a sign for Olympics, and that is Olympics. Now it's really technically two. You're using your thumb and your middle finger to interlock. And this is to symbolize the rings in the Olympic symbol. Technically it's just two, even though there's 5 rings on the actual symbol. Occasionally you'll see 3 if it's the start of a topic, or you're really emphasizing Olympics, you'll see 3. But in general conversation, quick sentence, I was watching the Olympics last night, or did you see that Olympic event? It'll be 2. So lock, ring, Olympics. There you go, your signs for the day. And that's all that I have for today. That's kind of a little bit of a shorter podcast, but thanks so much for tuning in and for watching this week. And you can find me on social media. I am Quillpen on Ravelry. My website is www.quillpensquips.com. That's also where you can find the show notes for this week, as well as a link to the episode. I am on Instagram now. There's Quillpen's Quips podcast on Instagram that you can follow. My personal one is Quillpen on Instagram. And then the Ravelry group, which is Quillpen's Quips Knitting and More podcast. Please join the Ravelry group. Even if you don't want to introduce yourself, just join the group. That will help get us towards the 100-member giveaway. If you do want to shout out on the next podcast, go ahead and introduce yourself and let me know a little bit about you, because I would love to connect. So thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.